I still remember that Thanksgiving evening at my in-laws' house. The smell of roasted turkey filled the air and everyone was laughing, catching up, enjoying the holiday. I walked in, wearing my old flannel shirt and faded jeans, my 2003 pickup truck parked outside between a BMW and a Mercedes. My brother-in-law Derek looked at me from across the room, that familiar smirk spreading across his face. In front of everyone, he asked loud enough for the whole table to hear. Still, no job, Jim. The room went silent. My wife, Sarah, lowered her eyes. What nobody at that table knew was that Derek worked for my company. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If stories about unexpected justice speak to you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you are going to want to hear how this Thanksgiving dinner changed everything. Let me take you back to where it all started, because you need to understand how a guy like me ended up owning a company without anyone knowing. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody and nothing much ever changes. My father spent his whole life fixing cars in a garage that was barely bigger than a shed. My mother worked as a kitchen assistant at a local diner, coming home every night smelling like grease and coffee. We never had much, but we had enough. My parents taught me that hard work was the only currency that mattered. I was a decent student, good enough to dream about college, but not wealthy enough to afford it. So, right after high school, I took a job at a warehouse loading and unloading trucks for a logistics company called Midwest Freight Solutions. It was honest work, heavy work, the kind that makes your back ache and your hands rough. That is where I met Harold. Harold was the owner of Midwest Freight Solutions. He was in his late 60s when I started, a quiet man with sharp eyes that seemed to see right through people. His wife had passed away years before I met him, and they never had children. Most days he would walk through the warehouse not saying much, just watching. The other workers thought he was strange. I thought he was paying attention. One day, I stayed late to reorganize a shipment that had gotten mixed up. It was not my job, but leaving it wrong felt like leaving a job half done. Harold found me there at 9 p.m., still sorting boxes under the flickering warehouse lights. He asked me why I was still there. I told him the truth, because it needed to be done, and nobody else was going to do it. That was the beginning of everything. Over the next 8 years, Harold became more than a boss to me. He became the father I never really had. He taught me how to read financial statements, how to negotiate contracts, how to see the difference between people who talk about working hard and people who actually do it. We would sit in his office after hours, and he would share stories about building the company from nothing, about the mistakes he made, about the people who betrayed him along the way. When Harold was diagnosed with lung cancer, I was the one who drove him to his treatments. I was the one who sat with him during those long hours of chemotherapy. And I was the one he called to his bedside 3 days before he died. He told me he was leaving me the company, all of it. But there was one condition. I had to keep my ownership a secret for 5 years. Harold wanted me to watch, to observe, to see how people behaved when they thought no one important was looking. He handed me a letter he had written, and I still remember every word. The way people treat those they think are beneath them reveals everything about their character. Watch carefully, Jim. Learn who deserves your trust and who deserves to be shown the door. I promised him I would. After Harold passed, I hired a CEO named Marcus to run the company publicly. Marcus was the only person who knew the truth. Together, we set up a system where I could monitor everything remotely, reviewing reports, watching security footage, tracking performance metrics. To the rest of the world, the owner of Midwest Freight Solutions was a mysterious investor who preferred to stay anonymous. I kept living in the small house my parents left me. I kept driving my old pickup. I wore the same simple clothes I always had. It was not about pretending to be poor. It was about something Harold taught me. Money changes people, but it also reveals them. I wanted to know who loved me for who I was, not for what I had. My wife Sarah knew I had some kind of investment, something that brought in money, but I never told her the details. I wanted to believe she married me for me. I wanted to believe that love was enough. That brings me back to Thanksgiving. Derek had been working at Midwest Freight Solutions for 3 years by then. He was a regional manager, the kind of guy who wore expensive suits and drove a car that cost more than most people make in a year. Every family gathering, he made sure everyone knew exactly how successful he was. That Thanksgiving, he was in rare form. So Jim, he said loud enough for the entire table to hear, still fixing old cars in that garage, "You know, we have a janitor position open at my company. At least you would have health insurance." A few people laughed nervously. My mother-in-law. Linda shook her head with that disappointed look she always saved for me. Derek turned to Sarah and said, "Honestly, I do not understand why you stay with him. You deserve so much better than this." I watched my wife, waited for her to say something. Anything. She stayed silent. Linda chimed in. "Sarah, sweetheart, I have a friend whose son just got divorced. He is a dentist. Very successful. Just saying." My father-in-law, Robert, did not say a word, but his eyes told me everything I needed to know. He had given up on me a long time ago. I just smiled and kept eating. What else could I do? Tell them the truth that would have defeated the whole purpose of Harold's test. On the drive home, Sarah finally spoke. "Maybe you should find something, Jim, just so they stop talking." I gripped the steering wheel and asked her, "Would that change how you see me?" She did not answer. That silence hurt more than anything Derek had said. After that Thanksgiving, something shifted inside me. I had spent years watching from a distance, but suddenly that was not enough anymore. I needed to see things up close. I needed to know what was really happening inside my own company. So I did something crazy. I applied for a job at Midwest Freight Solutions. Not as an executive. Not as a consultant. I applied to be a warehouse assistant. I showed up to the interview wearing work boots, an old t-shirt, and jeans. The receptionist, a young woman named Megan, looked me up and down like I had just crawled out of a dumpster. "The warehouse entrance is around back," she said, without even asking my name. "This is the corporate office." I told her I was there for an interview. She seemed surprised that someone like me would be interviewing for anything above sweeping floors. When they called me into the interview room, I could not believe who was sitting behind the desk. Derek. His face went through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, and then that horrible smile. "Oh my God," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Jim, what are you doing here?" I kept my voice calm. "Looking for work. Saw you were hiring." Derek called 2 other people into the room. Kevin from Human Resources and Amanda, his personal assistant. They gathered around like they were about to watch a circus act. "This is my brother-in-law," Derek announced. "He is here for a job." Can you believe it? Kevin and Amanda exchanged looks and started laughing. Derek asked me questions designed to humiliate me. "So, what makes you think you are qualified for anything? Can you even read a spreadsheet? I bet the most complex thing you have ever managed is changing the oil in that old truck." Amanda actually took out her phone and snapped a picture of me. "This is going in the group chat," she said. I answered every question politely, never losing my composure. At the end, Derek leaned forward with a fake sympathetic expression. "Look, Jim, I will do you a favor. We have a night shift cleaning position open. Minimum wage. Scrubbing toilets, mopping floors. Take it or leave it." I took it. For the next several weeks, I worked the night shift as a janitor in my own company. Nobody paid attention to me. I was invisible. Just another guy in a uniform pushing a mop cart through empty hallways. But I saw everything. I saw Derek arriving late almost every morning and leaving early almost every afternoon, while his time card showed 12-hour days and overtime hours he never worked. I found expense reports where Amanda had charged thousands of dollars in personal shopping to the company credit card. Designer bags, spa treatments, concert tickets, all billed as business expenses. I discovered that Kevin had fired 4 employees in the past year for poor performance. But when I dug into the files, I found the real reason. Every single one of them had rejected his romantic advances. He was using his position to punish women who would not date him. And I found the group chat. It was called Losers at Work, and it included Derek, Kevin, Amanda, Megan, and a few others. They used it to mock employees they considered beneath them. Warehouse workers, cleaning staff, anyone who did not dress well or drive a nice car. There were messages about me in there too. Photos from my interview. Jokes about my clothes, my truck, my entire existence. I documented everything. Screenshots, photos, emails, financial records. I built a case so solid that no lawyer in the world could have defended them. But the worst discovery was still waiting for me at home. One evening, I finished my shift early and drove home. When I turned onto my street, I saw a car parked in front of my house. Derek's BMW. My first thought was that something had happened. Maybe Sarah was sick. Maybe there was an emergency. I parked down the street and walked quietly to the house. The front door was unlocked. I slipped in through the back entrance and heard voices coming from the living room. Derek's voice. "Sarah, you need to leave him. He is a loser. He will never be anything. I can give you the life you deserve." And then Sarah's voice. "I know Derek. I just need more time. I need to figure out the finances first." What finances he has? Nothing. There is something he has never told me about. Some kind of investment. I need to find out what it is before I make any moves. I stood behind the wall, barely breathing. The woman I had loved for 6 years, the woman I had protected and provided for, was planning to leave me. Not just leave me. She was trying to figure out how to take whatever I had before she left. And she was going to leave me for Derek. I did not confront them. I did not say a word. I just turned around and walked back out the same way I came in. That night, I sat alone in my truck for 3 hours, parked at an empty lot near the highway. I did not cry. I was too numb for tears. But something inside me hardened into something cold and clear. Harold was right. You really do learn who people are when they think no one is watching. The next morning, I called Marcus and told him it was time. I asked him to schedule a company-wide meeting for the following Monday. The official reason would be an important announcement from senior leadership. I did not tell him anything else. I just asked him to make sure every single employee was present. Then I called a divorce attorney. I explained my situation and asked him to prepare the paperwork. I made sure every asset that was legally mine was secured. I wanted the separation to be clean and fast. The night before the meeting, I sat alone in the garage where I used to work on cars with my father. I picked up my wedding photo from the shelf and looked at it for a long time. Sarah was smiling. I was smiling. We looked so happy. I set the photo face down and did not look at it again. Monday morning arrived gray and cold. Every employee at Midwest Freight Solutions gathered in the main conference hall, over 200 people filling the rows of chairs. Derek was in the front row, of course. He was wearing his best suit, his hair perfectly styled, looking like a man who expected to receive good news. Amanda sat next to him, checking her phone. Kevin was a few seats down, already looking bored. Marcus walked onto the stage and took the microphone. "Thank you all for being here," he said. "Today, we have a very special announcement. For the first time in 5 years, the true owner of Midwest Freight Solutions will be revealing himself." A murmur ran through the crowd. Derek turned to Amanda with an excited grin. Finally, he whispered, "I have been waiting to meet this guy. You think he will recognize my work? Maybe this is my promotion." The side door opened. I walked in. I was still wearing my work boots, still wearing my simple clothes, still looking exactly like the janitor they had laughed at for weeks. The murmuring stopped. The room went completely silent. Derek's smile froze on his face. He looked at Marcus, then at me, then back at Marcus. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Is this some kind of joke he finally managed? "Marcus, why is the janitor on stage?" Marcus did not flinch. "Derek, I would like you to meet Jim, the sole owner of Midwest Freight Solutions." The man who has been signing your paycheck for the last 3 years. The color drained from Derek's face so fast I thought he might faint. Kevin stood up halfway like he was thinking about running. Amanda's phone slipped from her hand and clattered on the floor. Megan, sitting near the back, started crying before I even said anything. I walked to the podium and looked out at the faces staring up at me. Some confused, some terrified, some just shocked. 5 years ago, I began a man I loved like a father left me this company. He only asked one thing of me, that I learn to see people for who they truly are when they think no one important is watching. I paused and let that sink in. I have learned. The screen behind me lit up with the first slide. Derek's falsified time cards. A pattern of fraud stretching back over 2 years. I have watched, I continued. I have seen how some of you treat the people you consider beneath you. I have seen the lies, the theft, the cruelty. The next slide. Screenshots from the group chat. Message after message mocking employees sharing embarrassing photos laughing at people who were just trying to earn a living. I read some of the messages out loud. The ones about warehouse workers who smelled like sweat. The ones about a cleaning lady who could not afford nice clothes. The ones about me. Derek's face was gray now. He was gripping the armrests of his chair like he might fly away if he let go. The next slide showed Amanda's expense reports. Thousands of dollars in personal purchases charged to the company. Then Kevin's termination records. The women he fired for rejecting him. The harassment he covered up with performance reviews. When I finished presenting the evidence, I looked directly at the 4 of them. Derek, Kevin, Amanda, Megan. Your employment with this company ends today. Security will escort you out. Your final paychecks will be mailed. Derek jumped to his feet. Jim, wait. We are family. Sarah and I, we can explain. It is not what you think. I held up my hand. You just reminded me. Sarah, if you are watching this somehow, the divorce papers are already at the house. And do not bother looking for my investment. You are standing in it. Security officers moved in and escorted the 4 former employees toward the exit. Derek was still trying to talk, still trying to explain, but nobody was listening anymore. When the doors closed behind them, I turned back to the remaining employees. Many of them looked frightened, wondering if they were next. For those of you who have always treated your coworkers with respect, I said. For those who have worked hard without stepping on others, I want you to know something. I have seen you too. I smiled for the first time that morning. Starting next month, there will be a 15% raise across all positions. And we are implementing a new profit-sharing program so that everyone benefits when this company succeeds. The applause started slowly, just a few people at first. Then it spread through the room like a wave, growing louder and louder until the whole hall was filled with the sound of clapping and cheering. I stood on that stage and let myself feel it. Not pride, not revenge, relief. The weeks after that meeting were some of the hardest of my life. The divorce was finalized in 3 months. Sarah did not fight it. She knew there was nothing left to fight for. I gave her the house because I did not want to live there anymore. Too many memories, too many lies hidden in the walls. The first night alone in a small apartment downtown, I sat in the dark and stared at the ceiling for hours. I kept asking myself what I had done wrong. Had I been too trusting? Too naive? Should I have seen the signs earlier? There were no answers. Just silence. For a while, I thought the emptiness would swallow me whole. I went through the motions at work, but I felt like a ghost walking through my own life. Then, slowly, things started to change. I began going to the office every day, not hiding anymore. I learned the names of every employee from the executives to the warehouse workers to the night shift cleaners. I listened to their stories. I learned about their families, their dreams, their struggles. I created a scholarship fund in Harold's name for the children of employees. Every year, we would pay for 5 students to go to college, no strings attached. I started seeing a therapist, talking about Harold, talking about Sarah, talking about the anger I had been carrying without even realizing it. About a year after everything happened, I was at a charity fundraiser when I met a woman named Rachel. She was a third-grade teacher at a public school, and she had no idea who I was when we started talking. She just saw a guy in simple clothes standing alone by the appetizer table. We talked for 2 hours that night. About teaching, about kids, about what it means to make a difference in someone's life. When I told her about Harold, about how he had changed my life, her eyes lit up with understanding. She did not care about the company. She did not care about the money. She just liked the way I smiled when I talked about the man who had believed in me. 2 years after I fired Derek, I ran into him at a gas station. He looked different, thinner, older. He was driving a car that looked even more beat up than my old pickup used to be. He saw me and froze. For a moment, I thought he might run away. Instead, he walked over. "I deserved it," he said. His voice was quiet. "I know I did." I looked at him for a long moment. The man who had mocked me at every family dinner. The man who had tried to steal my wife. The man who had treated me like garbage when he thought I had nothing. I did not feel anger anymore. I did not feel satisfaction. I just felt sad. I nodded, once got in my car, and drove away. Harold told me something once that I did not understand until that moment at the gas station. He said that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I could have destroyed Derek completely. I could have made sure he never worked again. I could have dragged his name through every court and every newspaper until there was nothing left of him. But what would that have given me more sleepless nights? More bitterness. More poison in my own veins. The best revenge is not revenge at all. The best revenge is building a life so full of meaning that you do not have room for hatred anymore. If you are out there right now being underestimated, being mocked, being treated like you are invisible, I want you to hear me. The people who laugh at you today might be asking for your mercy tomorrow. And when that day comes, the choice you make will define who you really are. Not your job title, not your bank account, not the car you drive or the clothes you wear, just you. So, what would you choose? I would love to hear your answer. Drop it in the comments below. And while you are there, tell me about a time when someone underestimated you. What happened? What did you learn? If this story touched something in you, please take a second to hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories when they need them most. If you are not subscribed yet, join us. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you do not miss the next story. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Sometimes the right story at the right moment can change everything. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. I wish you strength when people doubt you. I wish you patience when the world moves too slow. And I wish you wisdom to know that your worth was never about what they saw in you. It was always about what you knew was inside. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one.